Welcome to Listen and Sleep. If you can hear this voice, it is time to rest. Find a comfortable position. Pull a blanket over you. Turn off the light if you haven't already. Let your shoulders drop. Let your breathing slow. This hour belongs to you alone. The day has done everything it could. Now let it go. Tonight, we travel to a place where a fire still burns. To the cave of the Naths. To the very beginning of Hatha yoga. To people who believed that the body is not a prison. The body is a path. Close your eyes if you wish. The voice will lead you. Imagine the foothills of the Himalayas, high but not yet where the air runs thin. A stone path winding between boulders and dwarf pines. A sky so blue it almost hurts to look at. Cold, not bitter, clean. The kind of cold that wakes something inside. Somewhere here, among the gray rocks, there is a cave, small, with a low ceiling, with black walls stained by the smoke of hundreds of fires. From outside, only a narrow crack in the stone. If you didn't know it was there, you would walk right past. Inside, a hearth burns, small. A few logs burned down to coals. The red coals breathe slowly, now brighter, now darker. The smell of smoke mingles with the smell of stone and something else, something ancient, perhaps ash, perhaps time. By the hearth sits a man, a sadhu. His skin is rubbed with ash, gray, almost the same color as the stone. His hair is twisted into tall, matted coils wound on top of his head. He wears a single thin cloth. Outside, it is freezing. He does not move. He has been sitting like this for 4 days. Not sleeping, not dozing, working. His eyes are half open. His gaze doesn't rest on the coals. It passes through them, through the floor, through the earth. His breath is barely visible. A long inhale, a long pause, a slow exhale. Between the inhale and exhale, a silence that holds an entire day. What is he doing? At first glance, nothing, just sitting. But if you come closer, if you let the silence of the cave become your own silence, you sense that something is happening here, something quiet and very serious, like metal melting in a sealed furnace. Somewhere in the city, thousands of kilometers away, in a bright, open studio, another voice speaks. Calm, steady. Inhale. Raise your arms. Move into warrior pose. 30 people on colorful mats stretch and turn and breathe on command. Mirrors reflect their silhouettes. Soft music. A membership card. A branded bag. This is also called Hatha. And that is true in name, in form. Much of what happens in that studio came from here, from a cave just like this one, from a man like this one, sitting by the fire. The poses, the breath, the movement. But if you asked the sadhu by the fire, he would probably be quiet for a long time. And then he might say something brief. One word, or nothing at all. Because the Hatha he knows is not about stretching, not about flexibility, not about a healthy back or a flat belly. The Hatha he has been practicing for 4 days without standing up is alchemy. Alchemy is a Western word, but the meaning is the same. Transformation. Working with fire so that something simple becomes something different, something more refined, more real. In Hatha yoga, the body is the furnace, not a prison to escape from, not a machine to repair, a furnace. Inside it burns a fire. Inside it, something melts, something that has no simple name. And if you tend that fire skillfully, slowly, patiently, year after year, something happens inside the furnace that the Naths called the great work. The transformation of the mortal into the immortal. This sounds like legend. Perhaps it is legend. But behind this legend stands 1,000 years of living practice. People who retreated into caves and did not come out for years. A line of teachers, each of whom passed on not a book, but a flame, from hand to hand, from breath to breath. We continue our journey through the world of ancient India, and tonight, one of its most remarkable paths, Hatha, the way of the body. Tonight, you will hear about caves and fires, about old books written on palm leaves, about people with pierced ears who lived by fires and passed their knowledge in whispers, about what is hidden behind the word Hatha behind its 2 syllables. Because that word is not just a name. It is 2 luminaries. And which ones exactly? That comes next. Just 2 syllables. And in each one, half the sky. There is a moment at dawn that lasts very briefly. A few minutes. Sometimes only seconds. The western sky still holds the moon, white, almost transparent, like a fingerprint on glass. The eastern sky is already brightening, filling with the soft gold that comes before the sun. Both luminaries are in the sky at once, moon and sun, fading and rising, cold and warm, and the earth between them, still quiet, as if holding its breath. In that moment, when it is neither day nor night, neither sleep nor waking, those who knew Sanskrit heard the word itself in the air. Hatha, 2 syllables, ha and tha. Ha is the sun, tapas, heat, the fire that moves, that pushes forward, that will not let you stop. Ha is the right side of the body, the right nostril, the channel that runs along the right side of the spine, Pingala Nadi, the solar channel. When the right nostril is open, when breath flows freely through it, the body holds activity, warmth, striving. Tha is the moon, soma, nectar, the coolness that settles over all that is heated, like dew on stones after a scorching day. Tha is the left side of the body, the left nostril, the other channel, Ida Nadi, the lunar channel. When the left nostril is open, the body holds peace, receptivity, stillness. Imagine every inhale through the right nostril brings you a little sun. Every exhale through the left, a little moon. And you live like this your whole life without noticing. Sun and moon taking turns, like day and night, like inhale and exhale. Hatha is their meeting, not simply alternating, not a compromise where the sun cools slightly and the moon warms slightly. No, a merging, a union, when 2 streams that have been flowing along separate banks suddenly discover they are one water. But the word Hatha has a second meaning, an old one, austere, effort, tension. Some translators choose an even stronger word, force, even compulsion. Hatha yoga is the yoga that will not be given to you. It must be earned. The two meanings do not contradict. They complete each other. For sun and moon to meet, effort is required, because time has separated them. Habits of the body have separated them. Habits accumulated since childhood. Tension in the shoulders, in the belly, in the throat. Subtle tightenings that make the right channel slightly narrower than the left, or the left narrower than the right, and the body begins to lean one way, to live more by sun or more by moon, by activity or by rest, never both at once. Hatha is the return to balance, through effort, through work, demanding, attentive, long. Where in the body does this balance live? Where can sun and moon meet? There is a third channel. It runs straight down the center of the spine. It is called Sushumna Nadi, the central riverbed. And as long as a person lives an ordinary life, breathing, thinking, worrying, sleeping, waking, this channel sleeps. Not dead, sleeping, quiet, dark inside, waiting. While Sushumna sleeps, you live by sun and moon separately, as everyone lives, active in the morning, tired in the evening. Inhale, tension, exhale, release. Thought, movement, silence, stillness again. Two banks, two rivers, one riverbed between them, invisible. Here is an old image the Naths passed from generation to generation. Two streams flow along the banks of one riverbed, Ida and Pingala, moon and sun. They flow side by side, almost touching. But the riverbed itself, Sushumna, stands empty, dry, for now. When Sushumna begins to wake, something changes in the very breath. Both streams begin to flow through the center. Sun and moon meet. And at that moment, the texts say, real yoga begins. The Hatha the Naths had in mind. In the ancient texts, Hatha has another name, a rare one, Pradipika. This word means lamp, the one that burns in a dark place, the one that lets you see what otherwise cannot be seen. The body is a dark cave. Inside it, channels, streams, knots, subtle movements that the mind does not suspect. Hatha is the lamp brought into that cave. A small fire, not bright, but enough to begin making out the shapes. Feel it now, the right side of your body and the left. Don't think about them, just feel. Perhaps one is slightly warmer, perhaps the other slightly heavier. That is your sun and moon right now, alive, yours. 2 syllables in one word. 2 luminaries in one sky, one body in which they seek each other. Where did this knowledge come from? Who first called the right channel solar and the left one lunar? Who first said their union was possible? This teaching did not come from a book. It came from mouth to ear, from teacher to student. And this chain has a beginning. The name of the first teacher is one that is never forgotten. The name of the one who stands above all naths, above all yogins, the one who first stopped his breath and first fell silent, Shiva, Adinath, and how his teaching reached humanity is a story that is hard to call simply legend. In it, there is a lake, a secret conversation, and a fish that turned out to be more than a fish. The shore of a mountain lake at early morning is a place where the world has not yet decided what it will be. Mist lies on the water. Silence. Only the sound of a bird splashing somewhere in the reeds. And the smell, damp, cold, faintly bitter, the smell of water that remembers the night. A fisherman sits on the bank, mending a net. His hands move with practice, unhurried, knot by knot. He does not look at the water. He looks at his hands, and only sometimes does he lift his eyes to the far side of the bank, where beneath a solitary tree someone sits motionless, a male figure, long dark braids spread across his shoulders. He has been sitting there so long that the fisherman has stopped being surprised. This is an ordinary morning on the bank, or so it seems, because the legend begins exactly like this, quietly, by the water, where no one expects a beginning. Long ago, they say, Shiva and Parvati withdrew to an island, uninhabited, in the middle of a lake, just the two of them and the water all around. Parvati asked him, "Tell me the secret, the one you have kept for millennia, the secret of immortality." And Shiva began to speak, very softly, barely audible, so that the water would not carry the words to distant shores. But at the very edge of the island, in the shallow water, lay a fish. It did not move. It simply lay there and listened. Every word entered it the way light enters dark water, slowly, all the way to the bottom. Shiva spoke. Parvati listened, and the fish listened too. When he finished, he looked down and saw the fish. He understood at once. He understood that it had heard, that it remembered, that every teaching, every breath of knowledge already lived inside it. He looked at it for a long moment, calmly, without anger, and the fish became a human. That person stepped out of the water and stood on the shore. His name was Matsyendranath, Lord of Fish, or, to put it another way, the one who had been a fish, the one who heard what was meant for no one. Try to feel this image, the empty island, the still water, and a person just emerged from it, standing there, wet, with drops of the lake on his skin, carrying inside him the secret of immortality. All of it, whole. Matsyendranath became the first human teacher of Hatha yoga, the first to receive knowledge not from another person, but from the source itself, directly, without intermediaries. And he had a student, Gorakshanath. That name means cowherd, but not of cows that graze in a field, of those that wander inside, the senses, desires, impulses, the things that scatter in every direction the moment you look away. Goraksha is the one who tends this herd, who keeps the senses in the field of attention, not letting them disappear over the horizon. Gorakshanath is one of the most mysterious figures in the history of India. They say he lived about 1,000 years ago. But "they say" is a special phrase here, because they also say that he did not die. They say he can still be encountered today, somewhere in Nepal, in a cave at the foot of Mount Kailas, alone, sitting by a small fire. Gorakshanath became the founder of the Nath Sampradaya, the lineage of yogins who lived not in cities or temples, in caves, in forests, by rivers and mountain passes. They were called Kanfata, split-eared. They pierced their earlobes with large, heavy rings. This was a sign of renunciation, a sign that worldly life was left behind, and the ring in the ear was a boundary you do not cross back over. Imagine one of them by a night fire, the forest around dark and quiet, the fire small but alive, the rings in the ears gleaming. The yogin does not move. His gaze is not in the fire, not beyond the fire. It is somewhere deeper, where words end. This is how the teaching was passed on, not in books, not in halls, from fire to fire, from silence to silence. And above this entire lineage, Shiva Adinath, the first Nath, the first to sit still, the first to stop his breath, the first to be silent for so long that his silence became an entire era. Adinath. That name means the first Lord, the primordial one. Before Shiva, no one. He himself was the beginning of a lineage that nobody started. He simply was. And what he knew had been in him from eternity. When he looked at the fish, he did not create the teaching. He passed on what already existed. As the sun does not create light, it simply shines. Three name, three links. Shiva, Matsyendranath, Gorakshanath. From these three, everything grew. Everything we call Hatha Yoga today. Every asana, every breath, every technique, every line in the ancient books, all of it goes back to this chain, to the island, to the fish, to the glance. Perhaps there is something important in this, not only as a story. Knowledge comes to where there is attention. The fish did not ask, did not strive. It was simply there and listened completely with everything it had. The mist over the lake begins to lift. The fisherman is still mending his net. Under the tree, a motionless figure. The morning slowly brightens. This teaching lived in people for many centuries, passed in whispers from mouth to ear, from heart to heart. But a time comes when words must be written down, so they do not leave with those who remembered them. 3 texts, 3 lamps. About them. Next. The time came to write it down, not because the teacher's voice had grown weak, but because the leaves on which knowledge lives decay. A palm leaf holds words for a century or 2. Then it crumbles, and if it is not copied, it is gone forever. Imagine a library inside an old temple, not one with tall bookshelves and a marble floor, a small, warm one with a low ceiling. The air here is dry deliberately to keep the leaves from growing damp. The smell of palm parchment, lamp oil, centuries of dust. Oil lamps burn at every wall, not brightly, enough to see by. A monk sits on a mat. Before him, 2 leaves, old and new. He copies sign by sign, unhurried. His hand moves steadily, like breathing. He does not think about what he is writing. He thinks only about not missing anything. Not a single word, not a single mark. This is how the 3 main texts of Hatha Yoga came to be. 3 lamps, each its own time, its own voice, its own angle of light. The first of them is the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, the lamp of Hatha Yoga, written in the 15th century. The author, the sage Svatmarama, he knew. Time passes, teachers die, students scatter along different roads. A map is needed, a durable one, written down. Svatmarama writes without extra words, each verse like a step on the path, clear, direct. 4 main chapters: asanas, how to sit; pranayama, how to breathe; bandhas and mudras, how to seal; samadhi, where all of this leads. But before he turns to the first chapter, Svatmarama says something important. He writes, Hatha Vidya is the stairway to Raja Yoga, not a rival, not a replacement, a stairway. Hatha and Patanjali's yoga are one road in two of its sections. Hatha begins where the body begins and rises to where the body ends. The second text appeared later, in the 17th century. Its name is the Gheranda Samhita, the book of the sage Gheranda. The story begins simply. A student arrives. His name is Chanda. He sits before the teacher and asks, "Tell me about Hatha Vidya." Gheranda does not hurry. He speaks slowly. 7 chapters. 7 steps, which he calls the limbs of yoga. Shatkarmas, purification. Asanas, steadiness. Mudras, firmness. Pratyahara, equanimity. Pranayama, lightness. Dhyana, perception. Samadhi, freedom. Gheranda speaks in more detail than the others about purification. For him, it is the beginning of all beginnings. While the inside is unclean, there is no point in going further. The third text is the Shiva Samhita, also the 17th century. But this one speaks in the voice of Shiva himself, the first Nath, the first one to fall silent. 5 chapters. More philosophy here. More questions about the nature of the body and consciousness. A detailed discussion of chakras, nadi, and the awakening of the sleeping force. But here too, a simple phrase sounds, easy to remember. The body is your primary instrument. Care for it as a jeweler cares for a precious stone. Not as a cage, not as a burden, as a precious stone. 3 texts, different voices, different centuries, different teachers, but all 3 speak of the same thing. All 3 illuminate the same room. Imagine a dark room, large, with a high vault, with niches in the walls, with dark corners. One lamp lights only the floor underfoot. A second, the walls and the relief carvings on them. A third, the vault above. Each one separately gives only a part. Together, the whole room is visible, all of it. The pradipika is the light at your feet. It says, "Here is where to begin. Here are the steps. Walk." The Gheranda. Samhita is the light on the walls. It shows details that are easy to miss, especially how to cleanse, how to prepare the vessel. The Shiva Samhita is the light in the vault. It lifts the gaze upward and asks, what is all of this for in the end? And here is what is important to understand about all three books. They were written in the 15th and 17th centuries. They are young by the measure of the tradition, but they gathered what had been passed orally for thousands of years, from Nath to Nath, from cave to cave, from fur to fire. The monk copies, the leaf rustles, the lamp flickers from a draft that came from somewhere below. The flame straightens, and again, steady yellow light. In these texts, there is not a word about a beautiful body, no advice on how to lose weight, no question about flexibility, no conversation about health in the way we understand it. Everywhere, only one goal. One, to awaken what sleeps, to transform the body not into a beautiful form, but into a temple, and the temple into a door. 3 lamps burn in the dark room. Beside them, a monk with a reed pen, and knowledge lives on, quietly, patiently. So there is a lineage of teachers. There are 3 books. There is the word and the map. But what does all of this mean in practice? What is Hatha at its core? Next, the most essential part, about why the body in this tradition is neither a goal nor an obstacle, but a furnace in which something is being transformed. In a mountain village where mornings smell of smoke and wet stone, there stands a forge, small, low, walls of unfired clay, a roof of a few darkened boards. Inside, one furnace, built from the same stone as the mountains around it. The fire in it burns slowly. Copper lies at the bottom, not yet flowing. The smith sits nearby. He does not hurry. He watches. Not the metal, the fire. His face is calm. His hands rest on his knees. A stranger would think he is simply waiting. But the smith knows. This is not waiting. This is work. The most delicate part of it. To place intention in the fire, to let it do its work, and not interfere. This is the image of Hatha, not the pose, not the effort, the intention, and the fire that does its work. In the West, In the dark laboratories of medieval cities, alchemists melted lead, hoping to obtain gold. They were called madmen. They were persecuted. They were not understood, but they believed. Inside every base metal, a noble one is hidden. You just need to light the fire correctly. You just need to know what to melt, for how long, at what temperature. In the East, the same thing was happening, only without crucibles and mercury. The alchemist was the yogin himself, and the furnace was his body. Hatha yoga is inner alchemy, ancient, tantric in its roots. Its goal is to transform the ordinary body into a different body, not stronger, not more flexible, different. In the Shiva Samhita, this is called Divya Sharira. Divya means radiant, celestial. Sharira means body, the radiant body, a body permeated by light, not blocking it. In other Nath texts appears the word Siddha Deha, the body of the perfected one, the body of the one who has attained. What does this mean? Not in a book, but as a feeling. Imagine a body that has stopped getting in the way. A body that doesn't pull attention to itself, not through pain, not through fatigue, not through anxiety. A body in which sun and moon flow freely, without resistance, like water in a clean riverbed. This is what the Naths meant. Not eternal life, not supernatural powers, transparency. For this work, Hatha provides 3 primary instruments. The first is the pranic body, invisible but felt. Through it flows prana, the life force, what moves breath, blood, and thought. The main channels are 3. Ida, lunar, cool, left. Pingala, solar, warm, right. And between them, Sushumna, the central one, the one that is silent in most people their entire lives. Beyond these 3, another 72,000 smaller channels. Hatha works with them, cleans them, opens them, straightens what has bent. The second instrument is bindu. This word is difficult to translate precisely. A subtle substance, the life essence. It gathers in the head. In the region, the Naths considered the storehouse of immortal nectar, and according to their teaching, This essence constantly drips downward, slowly, drop by drop, into the fire of the belly. There, it burns. This is how ordinary existence is arranged. Bindu drips, burns, diminishes. This is called time. This is called aging. This is called death. The task of the Hatha yogin is to reverse this flow, to stop it, or to gather it back, upward. One of the techniques that helps do this is Viparita Karani, the reversed action. The body is inverted, legs up, head down. What normally dripped downward now flows in the other direction. Sounds simple, takes years. The third instrument is Agni, fire. Not the fire that burns in the forge outside. The inner one. It lives in the belly, in the region called Manipura, the digestive fire. The Hatha yogin does not simply let it smolder. He fans it. Like a smith fans the flames with a bellows under copper. Why? To burn in it everything unnecessary, everything heavy, everything accumulated, everything that blocks light from passing through. The fire does not burn the body. It burns what has settled inside the body. Now, look at all of this together. The furnace, the body, the air, prana, breath. What is being melted? Bindu, the smith who watches the fire with intention. That is the practitioner. When the fire is steady and stable, when the air is controlled, not too much, not too little, when Bindu does not drain away, but gathers, then something begins to change, quietly, without drama, without words. The furnace begins to glow from within. This is what the Nath texts describe, not enlightenment as a flash, but a slow, steady luminosity. The body becomes transparent, not to eyes, to prana, to consciousness. Sun and moon, Ida and Pingala, begin to flow more evenly, and between them, something begins to open. The third channel, the central path. This is not sport, not physical culture, not therapy. This is alchemy. It has its own sequence, its own care. You cannot light the furnace without first cleaning it. You cannot melt metal in a clogged crucible. This is why Hatha has its own beginning. Before you light the fire, before you work with pranayama and bindu, before you think about channels, you must wash the vessel itself, clean it from within, the way a smith cleans his furnace before a new melt. About this. Next. About the 6 practices where Hatha begins. About how the Naths taught cleansing of the body, not from the outside, but from within, deeply, completely, without remainder. Dawn has not yet come, only a hint of it, a thin, pale strip above the horizon, like a thread drawn through dark fabric. The river breathes, mist spreads along the surface of the water, and in that mist, the figure of a yogin standing knee-deep in the river, motionless, calm. He came here long before dawn. He did not hurry. His hair wound on top of his head. In his hands, a long, damp strip of cloth. Cold water embraces his legs. He does not flinch. What he is about to do, a European traveler who happened to be there would have called strange, perhaps harsh, but the yogin does not see it that way. For him, this is an ordinary morning, routine, the one with which everything begins. Before you light the fire in the furnace must be cleaned. Shatkarmas, 2 Sanskrit words, each carrying its meaning. Shat, 6. Karma, action. 6 purification practices. 6 ways to bring the body to cleanliness, not beauty, not flexibility. Cleanliness in the most literal, physical sense of the word. The Hatha Yoga, Pradipika, speaks of this without softness. If the body is impure, you cannot go further. No pranayama will bear fruit. No asana will open the channels. Meditation will slide along the surface, not penetrating deep. First, purification. Then, everything else. The first of the 6 cleansings is neti, cleansing of the nose. The yogin leans over a vessel of warm salt water. He breathes water in through one nostril. He releases it through the other. Or he passes a thin thread from one nostril through the nasopharynx to the other, quietly, carefully. The nose becomes clean, the breath free. And there is something in this that is difficult to put into words. When breathing becomes easier, something in the mind also opens. A quiet clarity, like sky after rain. The second is dauti, cleansing of the stomach. What the yogin holds in his hands at the river. This is it. Vastra dauti, a long damp strip of cloth. It is swallowed, slowly, gradually, centimeter by centimeter, until almost all of it is inside. And then it is drawn back out just as slowly. The cloth takes with it everything that clung to the walls of the esophagus and stomach. There is also another method, kunjala, drinking a large amount of warm salt water and releasing it back. Both approaches pursue the same thing, to remove what has remained, what has accumulated, what has become excess. The third is nauli. It cannot be described without seeing it. The yogin exhales. He draws in his belly, and then the abdominal muscles suddenly emerge, protrude forward, and begin to move, to roll, left to right, right to left, in a circle, a smooth, wave-like movement. From within, this is a massage of all internal organs, gentle, deep, continuous. No hands can reach where nauli reaches. The fourth is basti, cleansing of the intestines. In the classical texts, the yogin sits in water and draws it inside through the work of the abdominal muscles, by himself, without outside help. The body becomes a pump. In modern practice, there is a simplified version, but the essence is the same: to wash what is inside. The fifth is kapalabhati, skull shining. It has already appeared among Hatha practices, and here again, rapid breathing through the nose. The belly works like a smith's bellows. The inhale, passive, light, barely noticeable. The exhale, sharp, short, active. Again and again, hundreds of times. The nasopharynx clears, the head lightens, the mind, which a moment ago was dark and heavy, suddenly becomes transparent, as if someone wiped a fogged pane of glass, and behind it was found light. The sixth is trataka. It does not resemble the other five. the yogin sits before a candle flame or before a small point on a white wall and looks without blinking until tears flow. This seems simple. It is not simple. Try to hold your gaze still for even a minute, and you will understand how many movements you usually make without noticing. Trataka cleanses the eyes, but not only the eyes, everything behind them, that which looks through the eyes. The mind gradually becomes still following the gaze. It stops darting. It becomes one with the flame. 6 purifications. Not decoration, not ritual for its own sake. This is the foundation. Without it, everything else is built on uncertain ground. But here, it is important to pause and say, the Shat karmas are not for everyone. The Hatha Yoga Pradipika distinguishes one whose body is healthy, whose channels are naturally clean, may go straight to asanas and pranayama. These practices are for those in whom things have accumulated, in whom there is too much excess, in whom there is inner heaviness that makes it difficult to go further. And one more warning, which the text gives plainly. The Shat karmas require a teacher. They look demanding because they are a serious instrument. You cannot read a description in a book and do it yourself. You cannot watch and repeat. You need someone who sees, who knows where to stop, who will say, "Here is enough." The yogin at the river finishes his morning. The strip of cloth is in his hands again. The mist over the river has lifted slightly. The pale strip on the horizon has grown wider. He still stands motionless. His face is calm. He has done what needed to be done, quietly, without triumph, without pride. Simply, he has cleaned the furnace. Now the fire can be lit. The body has been cleansed within. The vessel has become clean. And that means the time has come to speak of what is next, of asanas, but not the ones that look out at you from the cover of a magazine, the ones that existed long before magazines, the ones in which what matters is not beauty, but something altogether different. On a forest clearing lies a flat stone, even, gray, warm, from the daytime sun. On it sits a man, legs folded, spine straight, hands resting on knees, palms upward. Beside the stone, a clay bowl. It held some rice once, now empty. The birds got there first. The sun moves, slowly as always. Its ray slid across the ground, touched a pine, moved on. The shadow of a branch first fell on the yogin's left shoulder, then shifted, then disappeared entirely. An hour passed, perhaps 2. He did not move. Not once. This is what asana is. Not a pose, not a movement, not something you do, something you become. When the body is so steady, so comfortable, so forgotten, that it is as if it is not there. Only the clearing remains, the sunlight, and something inside, watching both. Patanjali's yoga devoted one verse to asana. One. Steady and comfortable, nothing more, as if everything else is understood on its own. Hatha yoga devoted an entire book to asana, because the path to steady and comfortable is long. The tradition says asanas number 84, but some texts mention figures in the thousands. Where did 84 specifically come from? Here the legend begins. They say Shiva once showed Parvati all the positions a living being's body can take. Not only human, any living being. Fish, serpent, lion, eagle. In total, 84 lakh. A lakh is 100,000. 84 lakh is 8,400,000 positions. That many forms life knows how to take. From that immeasurable number, 84 suited the human body and were selected as the main ones. From those 84, 4 are especially important for practice. Just 4, and all 4 seated. Siddhasana, Padmasana, Simhasana, Bhadrasana. The pose of the perfected one, the lotus pose, the lion pose, the auspicious pose. In each one, you can sit for hours without moving. That is precisely their value, not in how they look, but in what they hold. The most important of the 4 is Siddhasana. The name itself speaks. Siddha, one who has attained, one who has walked the path to the end, one heel pressed to the perineum, the other to the pubic bone. The legs folded firmly, the body closed from below. This is not merely a comfortable sitting position. This is a locking of the lower channels. In this position, prana does not drain downward. It turns around and begins to move where it needs to go. This is why Hatha studied asanas with such care, not for beautiful form, for the management of what is inside. But asanas in Hatha are not only seated. There are standing ones. There are inverted ones. And it is the inverted ones that hold a special place. Shirshasana, headstand, sarvangasana, shoulder stand, viparita karani, the body tilted, legs above the head. These poses reverse the inner streams. They change direction. Remember Bindu, that subtle substance that lives in the head and constantly drips downward into the fire of the belly and burns. Inverted poses change this direction. Bindu no longer falls. It remains where it belongs. The Naths called this the preservation of nectar, Amrita, the immortal. And now, about what happened to asana later. In the 19th and 20th centuries, a Western perspective came to India, curious, systematizing, taking everything apart. European researchers saw yogins, saw poses, recorded them, described them, and called it gymnastics. The spiritual was cut away. The form was kept. A form, beautiful, interesting, useful for the body, but only form. This description returned to India, and there it became physical culture. Yoga studios began appearing in cities, with mirrors, with clean mats, with pleasant music. The teacher says, stretch, breathe, good. And this is fine, but it is already something different. The true asana is not movement. It is a stopping, a pose in which you can forget the body, a pose in which an hour passes and you have not shifted once, in which the sun ray moved, a bird flew away, a cloud passed, and you did not notice, because you were deeper than all of this. The yogin on the flat stone in the forest is still sitting. In his stillness, he does nothing and does everything. His body has become transparent. It has stopped pulling attention to itself. It simply is, like the stone, like the sun, like the quiet air of the clearing. And when the body is like this, steady, quiet, forgotten, then you can go further. Then what follows, asana, opens. Breath, but not the kind you breathe automatically, the kind that becomes an instrument, which the yogin takes in hand, as a smith takes a bellows, and directs to where the fire needs it. High in the mountains, morning comes differently, not gradually, as in the valleys. All at once, sharp, cold, the keen smell of stone and ice, white light cutting through the dark sky. The yogin sits at the very edge of a cliff. Below him, a valley wrapped in mist. The mist is dense, milky, motionless. Somewhere down there, villages, roads, people. But from here, they cannot be seen. From here, only a white sea of clouds is visible. And his breath is visible too. A thin, white thread released into the frozen air, now long and slow, nearly a filament, now short and sharp, like a strike. Now it disappears entirely. Silence. Several seconds. And again. He is not simply breathing. He is working. The word prana in Sanskrit is broader than air. Prana is the life force, the one that moves everything. Breath, blood, thought, gaze. Air is only its carrier, the rough, visible conductor. Pranayama is not simply a breathing exercise. It is the management of the life force itself through breath. Ayama, extension, expansion, control. Pranayama, to expand prana, to take what happens by itself every few seconds and make it conscious, intentional, precise. In Patanjali, pranayama occupies 1 or 2 verses. Simple, calm. Here, an entire chapter. Because in Hatha yoga, breath is the primary instrument, air for the furnace. The first of the techniques is Nadi Shodhana, channel purification. The yogin covers one nostril, inhales through the other, slowly, without effort. Then switches, exhales through the one that was closed, inhales through it, closes it again, and so, again and again, alternating, Ida and Pingala, moon and sun, left and right. They are balanced, equalized, until a quiet equilibrium is established between them. Without this equilibrium, Sushumna will not awaken. The central channel stays closed, while the two side channels are at odds with each other. Kapalabhati is different. The belly sharply contracts. Air shoots out through the nose in a short burst. Then, relaxation, and again, fast, rhythmic. It is not the inhale that works. It is the exhale, active, sharp, cleansing, like beating dust from a rug. Only the rug is inside. Bahastrika, still more intense. Smith's bellows. Inhale and exhale are equally active, equally deep. Belly and chest move together, in, out, fast, powerful. Heat rises in the body. The head shivers. This breath awakens. It literally ignites something inside that was dormant. Ujjayi, altogether different. The victorious. The throat narrows slightly. Air passes through it with a quiet sound, low, even, like the sound of the ocean in a shell. The breath slows. It becomes long and thick, like honey. The mind follows. There is also Surya Bhedana, the breath that pierces the sun. Inhale only through the right nostril. Exhale through the left. The body warms. Activity rises quietly from within. Chandra Bhedana, the opposite. Inhale through the left. Exhale through the right. It cools, calms, like the shade of a tree at noon. And Brahmari, the bee breath. On the exhale, a hum, quiet even. The sound resonates in the head, filling it with gentle vibration. Thoughts gradually grow still, one by one, like waves withdrawing from the shore. All of this is preparation, different paths to one threshold. Because what matters most in Hatha pranayama is not the breath itself, but what lies between the inhale and exhale. Kumbhaka, the retention, when breath stops, when air ceases to move and the body rests in silence. The Hatha Yoga Pradipika states plainly, while prana moves, the mind moves. When prana stops, the mind stops. This is not a metaphor. It is an observation. Try to hold your breath for a few seconds, and thoughts slow on their own. The longer the retention, the deeper the silence within. Retention is the heart of Hatha. All the other techniques are arranged around it. There is an old formula. It was repeated from mouth to mouth, from teacher to student. Air is the king. Mind is his general. The senses are his army. If you want to calm the army, don't go to each soldier. Go to the king. Calm the breath, and the mind will calm along with it. And behind the mind, the senses. This is simpler than it seems, and harder. The yogin at the cliff's edge knows this. His face is calm. His eyes are closed. The white thread of breath in the frozen air grows thinner, then disappears entirely. Several seconds, absolute silence. Perhaps you have noticed this yourself. In a moment when breath stops on its own, for a fraction of a second, between inhale and exhale, a tiny pause you usually don't think about. But in it, there is something quiet, something that makes no noise. It is important to remember. Pranayama is practiced after purification. Only when the body and channels are clean can breath begin to be directed, and only with a teacher nearby, because this is not simply breathing. This is the lighting of a fire, and fire must be handled with care. The white sea of clouds below the cliff does not move. The village hidden within it is still asleep. The mountains are silent. Only this one person sits at the edge and fans into life something within himself for which ordinary words have no name. The breath fire has been lit. The warmth is rising. But so that it does not disperse, does not leak out through the cracks, it must be sealed, not held by force, locked from within. That will be the work of bandhas, 3 locks in the body, about which we speak next. Imagine a clay jug, simple, rough, fired in a village kiln. Inside, water, clear cold, the opening is uncovered, and the water slowly evaporates, splashes on the walls, grows cloudy from dust and air. An hour, and there is less water. A day, and it is no longer the same. Now, a lid, firm, made from the same clay, pressed on with gentle effort, and inside, stillness. The water remains water. The cold does not leave. The purity is not lost. This is what bandha is, not muscular effort for its own sake. A lid, a seal, what preserves inside what would otherwise slip away unnoticed. The word bandha in Sanskrit means bond, lock, closure. In Hatha yoga, it describes the conscious contraction of certain muscles, which closes off the paths through which prana leaks. Prana is not blood, not air. It is what moves together with breath, but is subtler than breath. What lights the fire within? What breathes in breathing? And it leaks constantly through lower openings, through the scattered mind, through the unclosed gates of the body. Bandhas close these gates. In Hatha, there are three locks, each for its own opening, each applied by its own hand. The first is called Mula Bandha, the root lock. Mula, root, base. The point where the spine begins. There, a contraction. The perineal muscles draw upward, gently but distinctly, as if you are gathering something from the floor, not from outside, but from within. This lock closes the lower exit. Prana, which usually disperses downward into the earth, into daily life, turns around. It cannot go where it is accustomed, and it turns upward. If you sit quietly and try to feel this, you will understand that it is not a gross muscular movement. It is a quiet holding, like a hand gripping something fragile, firmly, but without crushing. The second is Uddiyana Bandha, the flying lock. Uddiyana means upward flight. It is performed after a full exhale, when the lungs are empty. In this emptiness, the belly draws upward, under the ribs, into the chest cavity. The diaphragm rises. Inside, a space is created, a quiet vacuum. This movement is unlike any ordinary one. The belly does not simply pull back, it draws upward. There is a feeling as if something is rising from within. Hence the name, flight. Uddiyana Bandha activates the fire in the belly. It massages the internal organs. It causes prana to move upward through the channels, and it refreshes. An old yogin would say, "This is the lock that rejuvenates." The third is Jalandhara Bandha, the throat lock, the simplest in appearance. The chin is pressed to the sternum. The neck lengthens. The throat narrows slightly. The head inclines forward, but does not drop. It is held with dignity. This lock closes the upper exit. In the tradition of the Naths, it is believed that in the head is stored bindu, the subtle substance, the nectar of life. It constantly drips downward into the fire of the belly and burns. From this, the yogins said, comes old age. From this, exhaustion. Jalandhara Bandha holds this nectar, does not let it fall, protects it. 3 locks. The lower is closed. The upper is closed. The center, the belly, rises upward, and prana is sealed. When all 3 work simultaneously, at the deepest moment of breath retention, this is called Mahabandha, the great lock. 3 seals on a single moment. What happens inside? Prana is locked in. From below, Mula Bandha. From above, Jalandhara Bandha. In the middle, Uddiyana, lifting everything upward. Prana seeks an exit and finds none. Below, closed. Above, closed. The usual paths blocked. And then it begins to seek the one channel that is still open, the one that is normally silent. Sushumna, the central pillar, that dark path along the spine that an ordinary person never walks. This is the entire meaning of the bandhas, not muscular exercise, not training of the abdominals, but the creation of such pressure within that energy is forced to go where it would not otherwise go. The Hatha Yoga Pradipika repeats the same thing tirelessly, again and again. On every page where bandhas are discussed, only with a teacher, only after preparation, too much force gathers in these locks, too hot a fire is kindled. The body must be ready. The channels must be clean. Otherwise, not electricity, but fire. Imagine a dam on a mountain river. While the river flows freely, it is beautiful. It rushes, it gleams, it carries everything downstream. But it has no force. It simply flows. It turns no wheels. It gives no light. When a dam is built, the water first resists. It searches for ways around. It splashes against the banks. But the dam holds, and the water gathers, rises. The pressure grows. And in this pressure is born a force that was not there before, the one that turns the wheels, the one that gives light. Bandhas are dams in the body. They do not hinder the river. They give it force. There is something quiet and precise in the very idea of a lock. Not a prohibition, not a stopping, but preservation. Like a jug with a lid, like a cave that holds warmth, like palms cupped over a candle flame so the wind does not blow it out. You can lie still right now and simply notice this in your body without doing anything, only feeling how the breath moves, how it comes and goes, how on the exhale everything descends slightly, how on the inhale it rises. In this movement, there is already something resembling a lock. You are already holding something inside. Every inhale is a small pause before the exhale. Every heartbeat is a small pause between two pulses. The body knows how to seal. It does so constantly. Bandhas are only a more conscious, more precise, more intentional expression of what the body already knows. The locks are closed. Prana is gathered. But this work has one more level, even subtler, even quieter. If bandha is the lock, then mudra is the seal. And about seals we speak next. Bandhas, locks, closures, and now even subtler, seals, mudras. Imagine an underwater grotto, not deep, very shallow, so that light from the surface filters through the water and lies on the bottom in swaying strips. The water here is still, almost completely. Neither ripple nor current disturbs it. On the bottom, small stones, each lying where it has lain, perhaps for 1,000 years, and each has left beneath itself a mark in the soft silt, barely visible, exact, an imprint of its own form. This is how mudra works. An imprint, a mark, something impressed into the body, quietly, precisely, enduringly. The word mudra means seal, also sign, gesture. But in Hatha yoga, mudra is no longer what hands do in prayer. It is a particular position of the body or a part of it in which something is sealed, something is held, something is directed to where it could not otherwise arrive. The Hatha Yoga Pradipika speaks of this clearly. Mudras are last, not first. They come when the asanas are already steady, pranayama deep, bandhas mastered. These are practices for the mature, not because they are outwardly complex, but because only the mature body knows what it means to hold, to feel the difference between water flows and water is directed. Kachari Mudra, soaring in space, one of the most well-known, the most mysterious. The yogin curls the tongue upward toward the palate, attempting to reach the nasopharynx. This requires time, months of practice, sometimes years. Gradually, the tongue goes deeper, and when it finally closes the nasopharyngeal passage, something happens. According to the teaching of the Naths, here, in the depths of the nasopharynx, there is a point from which nectar falls. Bindu, the same life essence that otherwise drains downward and burns. Kachari stops this falling. The tongue, a small lock, a small lid over the source. The Naths said, the one who masters Kachari defeats time, not in a poetic sense. Literally, the nectar does not burn, the body does not age as quickly. This sounds incredible, but they believed it not as a metaphor, as a precise anatomy of the subtle body. Shambhavi Mudra, the mudra of Shambhu, one of Shiva's names, the benevolent, the giver of happiness. Outwardly, almost invisible. The eyes are open, but look at nothing. The gaze is directed to the point between the brows, slightly above. Physically, this is visible. The eyes converge slightly inward. But the main thing is not this. The main thing is the mind. It stops. When the gaze moves to that point, thoughts lose their footing. They find nothing to hold on to. Silence arrives, not by effort, not by suppression, simply the gaze and silence. Try this yourself, not now as you lie here, but sometime. Simply direct your gaze to that point and wait. See what happens to the thoughts. Viparita Karani, the reversed action. The body is inverted, head down, legs up. This can be a shoulder stand or a semi-inverted position. The meaning is physical, bodily. The nectar that normally drips from the head downward is now without its direction. Gravity has reversed. It returns to where it came from. This sounds simple. Lie on your back and raise your legs. But the Naths saw depth in this. Everything that flows in our lives along a familiar path can be reversed. Time, habits, directions of energy. Nothing is predetermined. You only need to change the angle. Yoni Mudra. The fingers close all the openings of the face. Thumbs, the ears. Index fingers, the eyes. Middle fingers, the nostrils. Ring fingers and little fingers, the lips. All the windows are closed. Nothing from outside. No light, no sound, no smell. Only what is inside. And then silence becomes a sound. Because inside there is a sound. It was always there. Only the external drowned it out. Anahata nada, the unstruck sound. A sound that arises not from a strike, not from friction, by itself. It can only be heard in complete silence, in complete closure. When all the windows are shut, you can hear what happens at the very center of the house. Vajroli Mudra. Here the text grows quieter. This mudra is almost not described openly. Contraction of the lower muscles, control of the lower channels. Tantric texts speak of it more. The Hatha Yoga Pradipika sparingly. This is one of the practices that were transmitted only from teacher to student, directly, without written words. Maha Mudra, the great mudra, a complex position of the body, one leg extended, the other bent, the hands fixing the foot. And in this position, all three bandhas simultaneously: the root lock, the flying lock, the throat lock, breath retention, the body gathered into one whole. Every part of it participates. This is no longer a pose. This is a state. What is the point of mudras? Why are they needed when bandhas already exist? Bandha says, not this way. It closes the paths of leakage. Mudra says, but this way. It sets the direction. Bandha is a dam. Mudra is the riverbed. Imagine a river. The dams are built. The water does not spread where it wants. The banks are reinforced. The water does not erode the soil. The bed is laid. The water knows its path. Now it flows where it needs to go, with force, with precision, without loss. This is how mudras work. After purification, after asanas, after pranayama, after bandhas, when everything is ready, mudra places the final mark, the seal, an imprint in soft silt, a stone that has lain on the bottom for 1,000 years. Light from the surface sways. The water remains still. And in this stillness, everything that is needed. All the instruments are now in place. The body is purified. The pose is steady. The breath is controlled. The locks are closed. The seals are placed. And what all of this gathers together for is already very close. It waits, coiled, warm, at the very base, in the corner of the cave. Darkness, not the kind that is simply the absence of light. A dark darkness, dense as water at the very bottom. And in that darkness, something waits, large, coiled. Look closer, and you will see a serpent, black, thick, with gleaming scales. It has coiled itself into 3.5 circles, head resting on top. Not frozen. It is sleeping, slowly, steadily. You can hear its breathing, or so it seems. Do not approach, not because it is dangerous in itself, but because it is better to be ready before waking something like this. The Naths knew this. They knew from the very beginning. At the base of the spine, according to their teaching, Kundalini Shakti, lies coiled, the coiled force. 3.5 turns, the head turned downward toward the earth. It sleeps in an ordinary person for an entire lifetime, not because it is weak, because the time has not yet come. Hatha Yoga is the preparation for its awakening, not the awakening itself. About what happens when the serpent wakes and begins to rise, there will be a separate episode in the video about Kundalini. But now, about what happens before. Why is preparation necessary? Why so many years? Shatkarmas, asanas, breath, locks, seals. Because the force is immense. This is not an allegory, not poetic exaggeration. Kundalini is a force capable of restructuring the entire nervous system, the entire subtle body, the entire being of a person. If the body is not ready, it will not endure. The channels must be clean. The nervous system, strong as an old tree in a storm. The psyche, stable as a stone in water. Otherwise, the rising force can shatter the vessel. In the ancient texts, there are many such cases described. Without names, without detail, simply, it awakened, and the person could not manage it. The body fell ill. The mind grew clouded. Life went wrong. This is why Hatha. This is why years. This is why patience. What did Hatha do? What exactly did it prepare? The Shatkarmas removed the gross. Everything accumulated in the mucous membranes, in the tissues, in the physical body itself. Without this first layer of cleanliness, you cannot pass further, just as you cannot pass through a forest overgrown with thorns. The asanas made the body steady, capable of sitting without moving for hours. The spine upright, like the threads of sushumna that pass through it. The body stops distracting. The body becomes quiet. Pranayama filled the channels. Ida and Pingala, the solar and lunar streams, were equalized, like two banks before a flood. Energy accumulated. It was not wasted. The bandhas turned the stream upward. The locks closed the lower exits. Prana stopped draining into the earth. It gathered, rose, prepared the path. The mudras directed the subtle currents to where they needed to go. They worked with the most imperceptible, the threads within threads. And only when all of this became stable, Sushumna began to clear. Sushumna Nadi, the central channel. It passes inside the spine, or more precisely, in the subtle body that coincides with the spine. In its ordinary state, it is dark, impassable, like an old well that has grown over inside. But when the channels are clean, when prana is controlled, when the locks are closed and the mudras impressed, Sushumna begins to lighten from within, gradually, like a clearing in mist that is at first barely visible, and then, suddenly, an entire horizon is seen. Only then can Kundalini begin to move. It can happen in a single instant. They say it happens. A yogin is sitting in meditation, everything as usual, and suddenly the force rises of itself without effort, like water that has found a break, or over years. A slow ascent, step by step, chakra by chakra, gradual thawing, not an explosion. Every case is its own. Hatha does not control this. Hatha only prepares the ground. The seed will sprout when it has ripened, when the time comes, not sooner. The Shiva Samhita says this plainly. Hatha without Kundalini is empty exercise. Kundalini without Hatha is a dangerous adventure. This is why the Naths studied for years, decades. They did not hurry. They were not interested in how many poses they had mastered, how flexible their joints had become. They were interested in one thing. Is the body ready? Is the nervous system ready? Is the psyche ready to meet what is coming? The body was not to become an obstacle. The body was to become a path. Imagine a path in the mountains, narrow, steep, stones underfoot. If the path is not worn, it is hard to walk. You can slip. If it is worn, the body moves by itself, without thinking, without stumbling, and all attention is free for what lies above. This is what Hatha is, not the summit, the path to it. The very path that the Naths over 1,000 years were laying and wearing into the stone and silence of their caves. so that those who came after could walk it. You may be lying now, listening to this, and thinking, all of this is so far from me. Caves, years, a coiled force. And you would be right. Most of us will never walk this path in its full sense. But perhaps it is enough to know that it exists, that behind the poses in the studio, behind the mat, behind the breath, behind the instructor counting inhales, stands something deeper, a tradition that did not want a beautiful body. It wanted an open path. The serpent in the corner of the cave is still sleeping, slowly, steadily. 3.5 coils. It is in no hurry. And that is not weakness. It is the calm of one in whom the force is so great that it needs to prove nothing. And now, one glance backward and forward at the same time. How this ancient tradition, cave, smoke, tangled hair of the knots, became what is called yoga today. From a mountain ashram to a city studio with glass walls. A great city of the 19th century does not sleep even at night. Somewhere deep inside, a stone building, a library. Tall shelves, the smell of leather and dust, yellow lamplight. A young researcher unfolds a manuscript, carefully, with both hands. A palm leaf, brittle, yellowed. The letters are unfamiliar. He translates what he can. The rest he leaves out. What he leaves out is the most essential part. The Western world learned of yoga in the 19th century, first through the Theosophists. Helena Blavatsky wrote about secret teachings, about hidden forces, about sages living in the mountains. Henry Olcott traveled through the East and recorded what he saw. Yoga was becoming a mystery, an exotic promise. Then came Vivekananda, 1893, Chicago, the world parliament of religions. A young monk in orange robes stepped onto the stage and spoke about India, calmly, powerfully, clearly. The hall fell silent, then gave a standing ovation. But Vivekananda spoke of Raja Yoga, of meditation, of consciousness, of the path to God through the mind. He barely mentioned Hatha. Hatha remained to the side. In India itself at that time, Hatha yoga was considered something marginal. The Naths, wanderers on the roadsides, sadhus with ash on their skin, travelers without homes. Not the kind of people one wanted to show to the educated West. The Indian elite looked at the Naths much as a librarian looks at a vagrant at the doorstep. And yet, in the early 20th century in Mysore, a southern city with a refined courtly culture, one man lived, Krishnamacharya. He studied the ancient texts. He understood Hatha. He taught. He had students, several people. Each of them went their own way, and each of that way became a road for millions. Bellur Krishnamachar Sundaraja Iyengar, known simply as BKS Iyengar. He systematized the poses. He made Hatha into a precise science. Every position of the body checked to the centimeter, blocks under the hands, straps for those who cannot reach. Iyengar opened the door for people with stiff bodies, with injuries, with age. Iyengar yoga spread across the world. Patabhi Jois went differently. He created Ashtanga Vinyasa, sequences of poses. One flows into the next, continuously with breath. Fast, sweaty, strong. This is not meditation at a wall. This is movement as a stream. And there was also Indra Devi, Russian by origin. Her real name was Eugenia Peterson. She became a student of Krishnamacharya when he still did not accept women. She persisted. Then she went to America, to Hollywood. Stars began coming to her classes. Yoga stepped into the light. By the end of the 20th century, all of this had become an industry. Billions of dollars, millions of mats, studios on every street, apps on phones. The name remained Hatha. But what stood behind that word in Svatmarama's time quietly disappeared. The poses remained, but the bandhas left. The breath remained, but kumbhaka left. The body remained, but the furnace went cold. This is not a judgment. It is simply an observation. Modern yoga does much that is good. It helps the spine that has bent over a screen. It returns breath to those who breathe shallowly. It gives a pause to people who have no pauses. It reaches those who would never otherwise have come to any cave. And yet, behind the mat, behind the mirror, behind the instructor's voice, there is something more, deeper, older. If you ever want to look there, you do not need to go far. It is enough to open the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. This book exists. It has been translated. It was not written for scholars. It was written for those who are ready. Inside, a cave, a fire, someone sitting without moving for 4 days and working. That cave has not gone anywhere. Ancient Hatha is still alive, in quiet villages, in mountain gorges, in small ashrams with no sign, no membership, no mirrors. There sit people who know the difference between a pose and a path, and the path has not grown over. The coals in the hearth have almost died. Only a few red points glow in the darkness, like the last stars before dawn. The smoke has become thin, almost invisible. It rises to the ceiling of the cave and slowly dissolves into the stone. The sadhu still sits. He has not moved. His face is calm, like the surface of water on a windless day. His hands rest on his knees, the breath barely visible. It seems he hears what is happening inside himself, something for which we have no words. The same cave, the same smell of smoke and cold stone, the same silence that does not press, but holds. Only the coals have grown quieter. Only the night has grown deeper. And you, too, are here, somewhere between sleep and waking, between this cave and your own room, between the ancient world and tonight. What remains from this journey? Let it settle. Don't rush. Let the images find their own place. The word Hatha is a meeting. Sun on the right, moon on the left. Ha and Tha. 2 syllables, 2 luminaries, not poses, not stretching. The meeting of 2 forces inside one body. When they unite, the body ceases to be a body. It becomes a path. There was a long lineage. Shiva, the first, silent, motionless. Matsyendranath, the one who had been a fish and heard what was meant for no one's ears. Gorakshanath, the cowherd of the inner senses, not letting them scatter. And further, thousands of names we do not know. People who lived quietly in caves by fires, by such dying embers, passing their knowledge from mouth to ear, from heart to heart. There were 3 books: the Pradipika, the lamp, the Garanda Samhita, the 7 lessons of the sage, the Shiva Samhita, the word of the very first. 3 lamps in a dark room. Together, they illuminate everything. There was a sequence. First, purification, shat karmas, to wash the vessel from within. Then, steadiness, asanas, in which you can forget the body. Then, breath, pranayama, kindling the fire. Then, locks, bandhas, holding what normally drains away. Then, seals, mudras, directing the subtle currents to where they need to go. And behind all of this, preparation for what cannot be hurried. For the awakening of the force that sleeps coiled at the base of the spine. And there was the main distinction. Ancient Hatha, alchemy, work with the body in which the body is not the goal, but the furnace. Modern Hatha, more often gymnastics, good, useful, but different. It matters not to confuse one with the other. On another path, which had its own episode, Patanjali's yoga, 8 limbs. Hatha leads to the same summit, but from a different side of the mountain. 2 different paths, 1 height. About what sleeps coiled at the base, and about how it rises, the conversation is still ahead. About Kundalini, about the force for the meeting with which Hatha prepares the body for years. And the ancient roots of Hatha are intertwined with Tantra. That is another story. About a path in which the body is sacred from the very beginning, where nothing is rejected, where everything is material to work with. But for now, only this: the coals, the cave, the sadhu, and you. Imagine your body is a furnace. Right now, it is calm, nearly cold. But inside it, 2 luminaries, sun on the right, in the right side of the chest, the right nostril, the right hand, moon on the left, cool, silver, quiet. For now they are far from each other. For now each day you live their alternation. Inhale and exhale, activity and rest, the light of day and the darkness of night. Feel this right now. Inhale, slightly warmer. Exhale, slightly cooler. Sun and moon. Every breath, all your life. But somewhere deeper, there is already a third channel, thin as a spider's thread, quiet inside it, dark inside it. It does not announce itself yet, but it is there. It was always there. As you fall asleep, there is nothing to do, nothing to understand. Simply know you have a body. The body has a center. The center has a path that leads to where sun and moon meet, where two become one, where breath finally stops, not from fear, but from fullness. You are already on this path, even if you did not know it, even if you have never sat in Padmasana. Every inhale, a step. Every exhale, a step. The path walks by itself. The coals in the cave are dying. The sadhu is motionless. The night is deep, warm, still. Sleep peacefully.